Structural strategy implementation. This video will be dealing with this topic called structural strategy implementation. Remember, we will be speaking about everything with respect to strategies and structures of an organization. Should we debate which should come first, as in strategy or in structure? So let us proceed. So basically, we'll talk everything about strategy implementation and how does it been taken care of. So exactly, implementation of strategy is nothing but sum total of all activities, the choices that is required for execution of the plan. The plan we have already generated and probably has in place in the form of vision or mission. Now, basically, what is the implementation? It's a step-by-step process which are put into action to ensure that the set objectives are achieved within the budgeted programs and procedures thereby. We'll talk about the implementation process as on when the questions arise around as to who are the person who is going to implement, as in the key person out there, key activities to be manned. What must be done to align the operations in a new directions? These are the questions that needs to be done. When, what are the resources have to be occupied, or whatever the persons has to be responsible, or what are the timeline that has to be maintained, how it is to be coordinated, so on and so forth. So we'll talk about the problems in implementing strategies, and there are plentiful of problems. You name it and we can have it. We might run out of time, probably yes, or it might get elongated. In other words, elongated in terms of duration of the completion of the work. There might be unanticipated problem. Let's say environmental, you might be marred with cyclone, thunderstorm, earthquake, and so on and so forth. Now that's beyond the control of the mankind. But what is within the control of the mankind? Probably there might be political disturbances, right? Economic upheaval that might comes around it. So activities ineffectively coordinated will lead to catastrophic results. So employees without capabilities, inadequate employee training, uncontrolled external forces, which I've already stated to you, inadequate leadership, inadequate information system, as the case might be. This is what is very important and pertinent with the daily passage of time. Strategy implementation, the programs is to make everything actionable. Compare proposed activities as in the set standard with the actual activities as in what is happening presently. So we need to have a matrix of change. Now remember, matrix of change would always be marked with flexibility and feasibility. They should be in congruent with one another. Remember, the moment we call matrix of changes, we should always incorporate the prioritizations out there. So what should be the sequence of activity, where it is to be placed, the resources that needs to be allocated, and so on and so forth. So this will determine how early or how urgent that action is all about it. So we talk about the matrix of changes as in what are the complementary processes and the importance to job. Remember, in a Likert scale, what we have done it is in a 5-point scale. We have actually married it and probably done for it. So importance to the job is something which we have been taking around. So let's say on a parameters, these are the existing practices and the importance out there. So let us be on a vertical meet product requirements, efficiency, low control. On the other hand, is the actual practice of the target practice that we're going around it. So these are the aspiring position, and these are the existing position. So what are we looking into it? So we are just naming few of them and rating it out. Absolutely, we are rating it out so as to come as to the degree of importance that comes around it. Remember, the matrix interactions will be the complementary practice, weak or non-practice, or interference, as the case might be. Look at it and we will come up with a perfect strategy as was to be incorporated first, what are the priorities, what resources has to be allocated, where manpower needs to be moved, and so on and so forth that comes around it. Yes, we talk about the budgets, budget becoming the backbone of any implementation process. Remember, planning a budget is the last real check a firm has to have on the feasibility of the selected strategies, as the case might be. The moment budget has been finalized, approved, and decided upon, we move to the next sequence of procedure. We will have to establish Statement of purpose or standards of procedure, the way we want to go around it, as in which are the activities, everything should be minutely monitored time and again. This is what we are looking for, it detailing the various activities that must be carried out to complete the corporation program. Then thereby, let us understand achieving synergies. How do we go across it? How do we ensure that the synergy is always being there? Now, if the return on investment is greater than the return would be on the division, was an independent business. This is what we need to understand as on when on basis that comes around it. We will have to make provisions to do this thing probably and go about it. Achieve synergy. Remember, synergy is wherein we are working in tandem, in coordination with one another so that it achieves the desired objectives as and when required if you want to go around it. Yes, this is the fact. Now, we'll look into the strategic implementations in the forms that has been manifested one by one. One is the shared knowledge or the shared know-how among the employees, is the free flow of information that needs to be uh, channelized. Now, once we start channelizing the information, that means we are coordinating our strategies. We are keeping everyone in the loop. Once this is, there are people in the loop, people will not mind. People from different background, different functionalities, different department, different heads, different location won't mind in sharing the resources thereby. And this is what we are talking about, the tangible or materialistic resources that comes around it. This will enable us to enhance the economies of scale or probably the scope part of it. Why? Remember, we started with the word called communication, the shared know-how. From shared know-how, it led to a cooperation. From cooperation, it led to the sharing of the materialistic resources and probably enhancing our economies of scale. Now, once everybody is under the same belief, same understanding, same roof, and same principle of the organization, thereby it probably increases the negotiating power, and this will eventually lead to a new business creation as the case might be. So the question remains as vibrant as anyone would like to tell it to you. Which is important, strategy or structure? Should structure follow strategy or vice versa as the case might be? Changes in the corporate strategies leads to the changes in organization structure. This is what is important. If the organization is a one unit or one location based organization, and then it diversify into a multi-pronged or multi-locational organization, definitely the structures will change, right? So this is what you need to understand. So essentially the corporate strategy, based upon the corporate strategy, the structure changes of the organization. So structure follows strategies, whereas the scenario in which actually structure follows the strategies around it. When a new strategy is created, when a new administrative problem emerges, did I say from a single location unit to a multiple location unit? Obviously, yes, you have to create newer structures altogether, because this will there would be issues with as far as administrations are concerned. Economic performance declines, probably monitoring becomes an issue as the case might be. New appropriate structures has been reinvented and invented and innovated, the, keeping in the pace of the changing scenarios in the environment altogether. So new environment is what we are looking into it, and profit returns to its previous level. This is what is the ultimate requirement of any structure, essentially hampering into the profitability of the organization. So stages of corporate development, how do we go around it, the development? We can have a simple structure, we can have a functional structure. A simple structure is where the head, the owner, and the employees, something simple. When the functional comes around it, it might be marketing, it can be engineering, it can be finance, it can be operations, and you name it. So then becomes a divisional structures. It can be based on various divisions altogether. Now, divisions need not be functional, it can be locational based, need not be locational, it can be product based. You name it, it depends on the requirement of the organization. And beyond SBU, strategic business units, something which we are looking forward looking altogether. So this is what we are looking at it. Simple structure. There are four stages that will come around it. As an entrepreneur, you have the exact control over anything and everything, right from allocations of resources to decisions which has to be made. So little, probably no formal structures, planning on a very short range, or maybe on a reactive basis you keep on planning. It is flexible, it is dynamic, it is as emerging as possible, it is mostly reactive in nature. Let us move to the functional structure. Functional structures are the stage two of the development, wherein now the entrepreneur is having a team altogether to assist him or her in all sort of decision. These are functional specialization that comes around it. Probably delegations of certain decision has been left to the head of the respective functional people. Why? Because things might have get complicated. Organization has grown bigger, operation has become complex, and so on and so forth. So why not have a competent people heading those kind of divisions or functions, as the case might be? Then we have something called concentration or specialization in the industry. Yes, there are many people who are absolutely fluent in their speed of things. Let's say IT or digital marketing, let's say legalities or corporate affairs, let's say finance or chartered accountancy, as the case might be, right? So this is what we are looking into it. Let's visit the stage number three, which is the divisional structure. Now, did I say from functional, it might be based on products, it might be based on uh, location. Now, this is where we need to understand is the decentralization of the decision making coming around it, the strategic business units, where it is located, which all places, and that is the reason why we require divisional structures, as the case might be. Almost absolutely yes, almost unlimited resources have been there, and everything. When I say unlimited resources, very difficult to keep a tab on the movement of everything, right? Because the organization has grown bigger. We come into the stage four is wherein beyond strategic business units, wherein it is beyond the manipulation or beyond the control of the organization that comes around. So it becomes where the environment is completely uncertain. We are not aware what the environment is going to change, how it is going to be looking at it. That is what beyond SBUs will be talking around it. We are talking as far as the technological advances are concerned. Um, we are talking about the size, scope, worldwide business. And remember, when I say worldwide businesses, the business is present in different part of the world, and different part of the world have different types, size of the problem. A problem in one part of the world might never be an issue in another part. There might be so many issues around it. For example, in the Middle East, the ladies will not be permitted to work. Let's forget that they are working in a night shift. So something as which beckons the environment or the culture of the local localities that comes around it. So you need to come up, dissect the issues one by one. So it's a multi-industry competitive strategy that comes around it. Better educated persons, yes, people are often educated, people can be responsible, people can be making the correct decisions on their own, and every time the entrepreneur need not step in every now and then. So factor differentiating one, two, three stages as far as the companies are concerned. It depends on the functions of the major problem. In stage one it was always survival, in stage two it was always about growth and diversification and probably things like that. And all in stage three, it is always upon consolidation stage or trusteeship, or increasing the business, enhancing the business by leaps and bounds. So these are the differentiating stage one, two, three company that comes around it. Functions are objectives, personal and subjective, profit and meeting functionally oriented budgets, and performance targets, as the case might be, return on investment, profit, EPS or earning per share. Functions are strategy, which means implicit and personal exploitation of immediate opportunities seen by owner, manager. Functionally oriented moves restricted to one product scope, exploitation of one basic services. This is what we are looking in stage two. One particular thing, so, and we like to increase it, enhance the possibilities of business through that product itself. In stage three, it is all about growth. It is all about diversification, be it market, be it product. You look it and we have it. Remember, as far as organization is concerned, stage one is a simple nascent organization, almost a one-man show. Stage two is probably things have grown up bigger, but still an individual unit functionality. But in stage three is a multiple general unit. There might be even in one unit, probably there might be people working around the clock. So we'll move to the measurements and control. Stage one, it was always personal oriented because the entrepreneur himself or herself is taking it into account all the decision and allocation of the resources. Wherein stage two, controls, the entrepreneur has to loosen the control because it becomes beyond his or her capacity to keep a tab on everything. And in stage three, it is a complex formal procedure. Now comes the checks and balances everywhere. This is the point where checks and balances have to be ensured so that there are no pilferages, there are no problems that that can be resolved, cannot be resolved by the system itself. Let's say KPIs, key performance indicators. In stage one, it was the personal choice, ethics, principles, standards of the entrepreneur, which will decide upon the operation efficiency. Wherein in the stage two, it was all about functional and internal criteria, depending on an excellence of the particular functional areas as compared to the, let's say, compared to the growing size of the organization, be it the budget, be it the number of employees, and so on and so forth. But in stage three, it is mostly becoming impersonal. Now this is wherein everything gets regulated either by the law of the land or the system being in places. We are talking about return on investment, the price equity ratio, the sales, the market shares, things like that becomes around it. Let us talk in terms of rewards and punishment. Now this is where we need to understand. Stage one was one person oriented. It was personal, it was subjective, it was depending on the sweet will of the person who is the owner of that organization. But that is not any true in neither of the stage two or stage three. In stage two, it becomes formal, it becomes structured, it becomes incorporated, it is been implemented on black and white. So there is a greater transparency in the policies. Stage threes are allocated on a due process and a wide variety of rewards and punishment. Now this becomes a little complex as far as the incentives creeps in, the rewards gifts creeps in, the punishment creeps in. It is based on the system and no longer it is under the control of the entrepreneur. Probably the bosses, the super bosses, the supervisors, superordinate people who comes decide upon it. A system is already put into place. So let us understand the OLC. OLC, as akin with product life cycle, becomes the organization life cycle. Remember, anything and everything, and I've been trying to tell it to you with the stage one, two, three, and fourth basis, which is beyond state strategic business unit, how the organization grows, develop, and eventually decline. The stages are basically that: the birth at the inception stage, then there's a growth stage. Once there's a growth stage, people, organization matures, they are looking into cash cows, and eventually, if you do not tend to the maturity levels and probably do not reinvigorate the organization, it eventually declines and vanishes into the thin air with the death or the things like that. So OLC, the stage five, all the things based on birth, growth, maturity, decline, and death, and these are what we are looking into it. Remember, we are talking about the structural strategy implementation as the case might be. So keeping that in mind, we have to keep birth during the birth procedures, what has been taken into consideration, the fact that needs to be taken every now and then is the concentration in the niche that comes around. The likely concentration in the growth stage is horizontal or vertical strategies that needs to grow around it. In maturity, concentrating or conglomerate growth, if you do not look into it, probably you are going into your declining stage of profit strategy, followed by diversification or liquidation in cases of death. So likely structures in stage one is entrepreneur driven. I have already discussed. In stage two, it will be functional driven. In stage three, it becomes complex, so it has to be decentralized into profit oriented centers. Stage four is where the structural strategy comes in, where the entrepreneur actually puts in the effort altogether. The person puts in the effort and does the surgery. In case it succeed, you come back to the stage one. In case it fails, you basically um, dismember the structures altogether, and this is how the organization life cycle works around it. So changing structural characteristics of the modern corporation. Remember, in the old design, it was a one large corporation. In new design, it's almost a cluster of smaller business, mid-sized business. Old organization was a vertical communication. In the new organization, it's much flatter and communication is almost horizontal. Centralization was the decision in the old organization, but in the new organization, it is all about decentralization. People are supposed to own up the decision. Vertical integrations is outsourcing and virtual organization. Work quality teams, autonomous work teams, that is coming around it. Functional work team, cross-functional work team, minimal training and extensive training, specialized job design focused on individual, value chain, team focused job design, as the case might be. So yes, we will be talking about the matrix structures, which is the three distinct things that comes around it. First is almost on a task basis, task forces, and this is temporary in nature. Then becomes the product or brand management, as the case might be, which eventually this temporary work structure gets a little bit solidified and becomes a permanent mature matrix, as the case might be. I have given you an example where in the matrix these are the people. Let's say this person is not only depending on the HR as a department, but also looking at the responsible for the managers of the project A. So everywhere there is at least 2 3 reporting that needs to be taken care of. So network structure, let us understand the non-structures where there are nothing which exists formally. The elimination of in-house business functions, thereby, as the case might be, we look into it. It's termed as a virtual organizations. How? Why? Because there are no particular structure that comes around it. Useful in a very unstable organizations or environment. Why unstable? Because you are not sure about the profitability or the profit motive thereby. So needed for the innovations and the quick responses, as the case might be. We look into our network structures, which is loosely based, and it is almost that everybody is looking into a different kind of a business. The supplier would have been a different business and need not be only supplying to the corporate accounts. So might be the designer. Probably this is one of the client for the designer out there. He or the person might have a different kinds, a number of clients. Similarly, for contract manufacturer, promotional advertising agencies, packagers, now this is what the network structure is all about it, where you work in tandem with one another as a vendor, as a supplier, as the case might be. So let us understand what happens in terms of a cellular organization composed of cells, people's structures composed of cells and are in almost in silos. These are the people who are managing on their own as a self-management team. The autonomous business unit takes place, and remember, these remains as a cost centers and profit centers. Individually, these centers has to be profitable by sequence altogether. So re-engineering, how do we go around it? It's a radical design of the business process to achieve a major gain in cost, services, or time. Effective way to implement the turnaround strategies thereby. And that is what we are looking forward to it. So re-engineering principles would be of to organize around the outcome and not on the task. Outcome more or less should remember the same and not the task. It is what you need to go around it. So have those who use the output perform the process altogether, which impacts the output in the best possible fashion, subsumes information processing work into a real work that actually produces the information with the passage of time, as the case might be, treat geographically dispersed resources as though they were centralized, as on when on basis, link parallel activities of integrating their result, thereby, as the case might be, put decisions point where work has been performed and build controls into the process with every part process. How do you go around it? This is what needs to be understood time and again. So capturing information once at the source. Remember, when we are talking about re-engineering, always capture information right at the source, because beyond that source, things get distorted also. And you have to take those data points very, very seriously, because based on that data only you're going to take resources, allocate resources, or change the processes thereby. This is what we are looking forward to it. Job design sources of competitive advantages, as the case might be, is a job design is a study of individual tasks to increase relevance. Job enlargement. Now, what is job enlargement? It is basically um, enhancing a number of tasks or encapsulating a lot of activities within the task or similar sort of activities, so that there is more responsibility which has been assigned. Job rotation, probably you're doing one particular job in one particular function, then be rotated into a different kind of job in a different function, right from finance to operation, operations to production, production to inventory, the way you want to go around it. Job enrichment is something called more autonomy and control to the workers, as for they have been made responsible for their own action. A little less supervision has been worked around it. So basically, job design sources of competitive advantages is the design that what you work around job design, what are the activities that comes around with the job. Now, if to that, if we can enhance or enlarge that job with additional activities which given more responsibility which has been allocated, comes the job rotation is increased variety of tasks, job enrichment, more autonomy and control to the workers, as the case might be. Domestic companies, some exporting certain kind of things, domestic company, exports divisions, domestic companies, international division, as the case might be. Multinational corporation is multi-domestic emphasis as and on basis. Remember, it's absolutely on multi-domestic as on when basis. Did I say about the Middle East issue with the females of the working population, which is absolutely no. And then in the western part of the globe, it is irrespective. In fact, there would be, if you make a biasness based on the gender, it's a criminal offense altogether by the laws of the land. So that is what we go to go around it, multi-domestic emphasis. And the multinational corporation will always have a global outlook or a global emphasis that people comes around it. So right from domestic to how you go into a multinational corporation, from exporting to an exporting divisions to international divisions to a multi domestic emphasis and a global emphasis thereby. I hope this is where you should be able to understand what are the various stages of international development. You start exporting, then probably have a divisions allocated only for exporting and managing the invoices thereby. Then probably you can offshore your clients, your employees into a different company in different organization as an international divisions, wherein you are not only exporting but also importing it back from there on your own, and then probably going into retailing part of it, the supply chain. So that would be the international divisions, and then we come into the multi-domestic emphasis and global emphasis, as the case might be. Geographic area structures of a multinational corporation is the board of governors or board of directors, as the case might be. We have the president, the vice president, the chairman, whatever the nomenclature that we want to put into it, research and development, and the corporate staff. No, and then we have a lot of owners or chief executive officer, let's say based on US, based on Europe, based in Latin America, Africa, Asia. Each thing can be again fragmented into product A, B, C, B and D, you name it and we can have it. And that is how everything goes around it. I hope this is clear with it. As far as the geographic area structures of multinational corporation, let us understand the with the advent of online, the metaverse, the internet, how hyperlinked organizations work. This they work on decentralization. Why? Because of the availability of real-time data, and I emphasize on the word called real time, as on when on basis, the hypertime location directly accessible, rich data that we goes around it, broken, borderless, and that is what needs to be understood. So trajectories of decline, if you are not operating upon it, if you don't look into it, your focus gets misplaced, you are going to get decline. If you are not venturing into a newer organization, newer prospective industry, again trajectories of decline would go around it. Or probably if you're venturing out too much based and allocating all your resources to a new ventures where the outcomes is very uncertain, and in case it doesn't go as per your plan, it means that the organization is declining. Inventing decoupling. Decoupling is getting yourself aloof from the customers' preferences, taste, the trends out there. If you think that you are in an isolated state of affairs, you have been doing wonderfully well for past 20 odd years, and for the next 20 odd years, it is almost ensured that the business will be stable. Remember, the environment is very vibrant, very dynamic. It changes, and it is the loyalties of customers are changing, the attitude of the end customers are changing. You should ensure that you are keeping in touch with the reality. In case that decoupling happens, it means that you are destined not to do well and probably end up in a soup. So keep yourself ready, keep yourself vibrant, keep yourself focused is what we look into it to ensure that we have a structural strategy implementation. With these few words, I would love to wind up this particular presentation. Thank you for watching this video.